Hello, I'm Matt Bergman, and you are listening to the Punk Rock Libertarians Podcast, episode 284. I'm here tonight with Jared Schneiderman,
What's up, everybody?
Philip Dassing,
Going on.
Alexis Schlegel,
Don't obstruct on me.
and special guest, Secretary of the National Libertarian Party, Caryn Ann Harlos.
And yes, and Wayne, please shut that door.
Glad you said it.
So wait, who is Wayne?
My husband.
Okay, all right. Figured as much. That was
When did
pretty
that
funny.
happen? It was the most inopportune time. What was going on at that moment? I forget.
Oh, who knows?
Oh.
Oh,
Yeah, it was
That was
so
fun.
long. I know.
Man. So the convention, that was pretty crazy. That's pretty crazy.
it was intense. It was something. It definitely was something.
I know there were many times I felt sorry for you because it just seemed like you had like so much work to do, it was
It was a lot.
yeah.
I like being really busy though, so like I do best under those types of circumstances. It's actually more work now because I have to do all the post-convention audits, and those just aren't quite as exciting.
Oh, yikes, man. I guess that's the stuff that
The
people don't
minutes
even
and
think
the
about.
audits, yeah, those are not nearly as exciting.
Wow.
No, I did. I signed the candidate certification for Delaware today because that's the first state deadline to come up that we have to get them certified for the ballot.
Awesome.
So, like, how do you feel about our presidential candidate and our VP?
For once, well, I'm not gonna say for once because I haven't been in the party that long, but as compared to last time, I'm like stoked because last time we were terrible in Colorado, but we wouldn't take any yard signs that had weld on it. We wouldn't take anything that had weld on it. So
Wow.
yeah,
That's
fuck
awesome.
that guy.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think everybody here is pretty excited about it. I think we as in like the LP. I mean, I think we get, it's I don't know. It's pretty radical that we got a presidential candidate that supports the entire platform, right?
Yeah,
Because we haven't had that in a few turns.
yeah, we
And then-
won't have to worry about wayward cake baking, banning
Right.
burqas, whatever other harebrained thing might. Yep. And she's been around a long time. She ran with Harry Brown, so she ran with the best.
Yeah, and not to mention the VP, who is an open anarchist.
Yeah, no, and he's awesome. He is absolutely awesome. But apparently, I hear there's some controversy that there's shirtless photos of him somewhere on the internet.
Yeah, his
It's like his
profile
main
picture.
profile pic.
Oh, I don't even notice. It's like, wow. So it's a surprise to people that there's a body under those clothes. I just assumed
Right.
it was vapor.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of controversy. I think that there was a Reason article about it, and it's Brian
Well, there-
Doherty.
the- it
Brian
was a Reason article
Doherty
about
wrote it.
It was a
Really?
it was a Reason article. Who wrote it?
Brian Doherty wrote it. This is the one that I'm talking about, and he said something like he made it sound like he made it sound like Jo Jorgensen expressed her preference for John Mons, and the party went against her and picked.
No, she specifically
I know, I was
said
there
no
on Earth.
preference.
Yeah.
Exactly. She said, "I trust whatever you guys are going to do. I'm going to vote for John Mons."
She produced an argument for pretty much every
Yeah.
Yeah.
candidate. I mean, some of them sounded a little stronger than others, but that doesn't mean I want this person.
Plus, there is no quote unquote giving the candidate what they want. Our
Yeah.
bylaws don't allow for that. That's just a
Yeah, there was actually someone in
nonsensical
our
argument.
I'm not going to name names, but there was someone in our delegate chat that was bringing that up as an argument that,
Yeah.
she prefers Mons, so we should pick Mons. And I was just like, that has nothing to do with it. Like,
Nothing. If we wanted to give the candidates exactly who they wanted, we would run a ticket like the old parties do, but we don't.
Right. Exactly.
And look what happened when last time we gave a candidate what they wanted. We ended up with Bill fuck that guy well.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So what were your thoughts on let's just call it Nick Sarwarks last minute fuckery?
not a fan.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I know. It was like, it's funny because like a lot of people seem to predict it coming.
Oh, I didn't.
We did.
Oh, yeah. So I've talked to guys from the Mises Caucus that claim
You
that.
know,
that was
but you want to know something? Everyone's got hindsight 2020. Show me a post where you said it ahead of time and I'll believe you.
I don't.
I'll send you. I'll send you.
Phil has-
I,
yeah.
Okay.
I
This
got
was-
him.
Yeah, Phil was
All right.
talking to me.
All right.
Well, because they were telling.
I didn't predict it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, the caucus was telling the delegates to, make sure you stay around to the end because Nick's going to try something. And,
Phil, are you-
well,
all
I
we were hearing.
expected Nick to use his influence, and I don't fault him for that. I mean, that's what conventioneering is. I kind of fault him for that, for doing it from the dais, but everyone uses their influence the best they can.
Mhm.
I'm not a fan of what he did, because don't be mad at me. I never do what people think I'm going to do or what's necessarily popular. The reason I'm not a fan is I had, despite disagreements, very public disagreements I've had with Nick over the years, I had the utmost respect for him as a presiding officer. And that was unworthy of him. It really was. As a presiding officer, I think up to that point, he was the best chair we ever had. And people can take whatever personal, they don't like him personally, they don't like his politics or whatever. He had a natural talent to command a room like no one I've ever seen. And no one can take that away from him. And I'm very, I am embarrassed that his legacy is ending that way. I know he doesn't view it that way, but your legacy is what other people make it, not what you think it is. And
Which aspect specifically? Just him stepping down, him trying to force the convention to, continue voting, or all of the above?
well, first of all, he didn't step down before he made his argument. He said, I'm going to ask the indulgence of the body. So he was still behind the podium, so it were. And he used that position behind the podium to attack his political opponents. And that's just extraordinarily improper. You don't do that. If
Right.
you don't, I wouldn't have liked it if he did it even after he passed the gavel, but at least that would have been technically okay. There's
Yeah.
plenty of things that are technically okay, but still shitty to do. And I don't
Sure.
mind saying this, getting up, debating, and then immediately calling the question. You're allowed to do that. It's a shitty thing to do, but you're allowed to do it.
Well, who would you say that Nick Sarwark was attacking? Who were his opponents?
I'd have to re-listen again, but I don't want to go by memory, but I felt it was the people that have been criticizing him, specifically other people on the LNC, such as myself. I definitely saw some personal barbs in there.
Well, like, what did you think about I'm sure you saw the debate with him and Dave Smith when he said if Hitler was running as the Libertarian candidate, we should still support him.
Okay. Bill Weld, that's all I can say. Not that he's Hitler. I'm just saying that.
I guess he's pretty close. I mean,
No.
I mean,
No.
Well, Bill Weld doesn't believe in the right to bear arms. Neither did Adolf Hitler, right?
Oh, please, no. I would never compare anyone to Hitler. Never.
Hitler also drank water.
You're right. We're better than that here.
He also took showers.
Yeah, no. But what I meant was I can't fault Nick actually for saying that, because all of us hoard ourselves out for Bill Weld. I did. So I feel dirty.
I gotta say, like, I regret voting for Bob Barr.
I would too if I were you.
I'm just saying. I regret voting for Bob Barr, and then we're talking about like Adolf Hitler. You should vote for Adolf Hitler if he's the party nominee. I mean, that's like
that. I think he was being okay. Nick has a sense of humor that he thinks everybody gets sometimes, and sometimes it's so subtle that it backfires. He's done things before that have gotten people really angry, and I've recognized that. Like, there was something with the whole Arvin thing where he made a Tide Pod joke, and everyone thought he was actually insulting like his critics, but actually it was his weird way of saying Arvin was being stupid, but nobody got it. Nobody got it. I got it, and it just backfired. And listen, I've been in a lot of debates in my life. I used to own a theology debate forum. Like, debate used to be my thing. And which is funny because I hate debating. But what's funny about that is I hate politics too, yet here we are. And I've said some really stupid things in debate before. So somebody could get under your skin. And I've goaded people into saying really stupid things before. I used to be a very obnoxious debater. This one guy I debated, he was so uptight. So at the end of it, I said, it must suck to get your ass kicked by a girl. And boy, did he get pissed off. So, and I'm not proud of that. It's funny, but I'm not proud of that. That's just like,
I wouldn't bat an eye at that. I mean, it's like, I don't know. It's I can't really compare that to what Nick said.
You're not gonna.
Yeah.
I worked myself out for Bill Weld, so I'm not gonna.
Don't be too hard on yourself.
Oh no, I'll be hard on myself to the day I die for that one.
Yeah, I feel like there's just a lot of steps that he took over the course of the weekend that we saw were coming. And it just kind of bam happened, and it just killed. Like the last hour and a half of the convention was just for that. It was really low. Like the way he handed it off to Alex. I'm glad Alex was able to kind of handle.
Well, I felt bad for Alex. Was chilling. Boy, Alex was chilling out. It was like, we're almost done. I'm gonna get home.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, a big shit turd, like just boom. And poor Alex. But I've seen him grow before my eyes. Like he matured.
How do you think he's going to handle? He's supposed to be chairing the
We've
Orlando,
got plans.
right?
I've been speaking with him. We've got some plans. It's going to be fine.
Okay, cool.
That's good.
I'm not going to divulge his plans, but he's grown immensely since that was thrown. That bomb was just exploded in his lap.
Yeah. Whose computer is that?
That's me.
Oh,
sorry.
That's all right. Thought it was Alex.
I should put it on pause because you have no idea.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So how would you say overall the weekend went? Like the compromise, everything. How do you look back at it? Now some of the dust has settled. Some.
I felt member rights were really, really trampled, but considering the setup, it went as well as it could. And everyone up until that last couple hours there, I think, did very well at doing their best to pull it off. It's not the method I would have chosen for the bifurcated part. What I had preferred was email ballots, just not having a live meeting, because anyone could predict that you were going to have people waiting in line for 24 hours to speak and then not getting to speak. To me, there should have been debates, and then everyone sent rounds of ballots, and it just be done that way with the delegations. And that would have been a lot cleaner. But I think a lot of people, I would have been mad if I were waiting in line for that many hours and didn't get to talk or say.
Yeah, I didn't get to talk. I had my hand raised, and then someone put it down, and then I raised again, and someone put it down, and I put my question in the Q&A, and it just disappeared. And there's a last screenshot of the last two people, and I was one of the last two people in line. I guess it got added, but yeah, I never got a chance to speak. So I don't feel like my rights didn't get violated, but it's just that was really frustrating.
Yeah, and there was like 1,000 people in this Zoom meeting.
Yeah,
and what about the one guy who kept like losing his internet connection, and then when he would come back in, he would have to announce to everybody, "I'm back. I'm using the hotspot on my phone." A dozen times.
But there were some people I felt like were getting called on all the time. Like,
right.
I don't know if I want to name names, but
Starchild. Maybe you can explain to me, what is the point of personal privilege?
Okay.
I don't really know.
You know, I'm an R&R geek, so now you're singing the song of my people. A point of personal privilege is supposed to be, for instance, if you were in a live setting, you know, not on Zoom, and the air conditioner was too cold, so that happened in 2018. And you couldn't deal with it, you would raise a point of personal privilege. It's something that's happening in the meeting area that is keeping you from being able to fully participate. So people's cell phones going off, people chattering, that sort of thing. That's what that's supposed to be.
Are they generally more rare than what we saw?
Yeah.
Okay.
They were abused.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like it was 1,000 people, you know, but it seemed like the same.
Well, there was a lot of issues with like internet connections and people not knowing how to use
right, and those
Buddy
are,
and all that other shit.
well, and those are legitimate points of personal privilege because
Sure,
it's a condition in the room that's keeping you from participating fully.
Right.
And then, you know, there's also points of parliamentary inquiry, which is different. And some people were using points of privilege for that, and it's not. So
do you think the online setting just allowed a lot of the abuse to occur that happened?
I don't think Zoom is set up very well for it. For instance, a lot of people were getting very angry at the panelists. And I understand if I were on that end, I would have been too. But being on the other end, we didn't have the ability. I don't think people realized we couldn't type into the Q&A box. It just wasn't available. We could see it, but we couldn't type into it. So the only way we could get recognized for interrupting motions was to literally interrupt. So I think the panelists got demonized a bit more than they should. And I think it was incumbent upon the presiding officer, not the panelists, to say, to keep somewhat of a written list, like note where in the Q&A box, if they could type, they would have fallen, and called upon them in order.
Right.
That's not up to the panelists. That's up to the presiding officer. Zena, did you open the door? Am I going to have Wayne close that? He's not up here on
call. It out to Wayne.
Yeah, Wayne, close the door.
Oh, that's awesome.
My dog is Zena, if you're wondering.
Well, it sounds like there's what's your dog's name?
Zena. She's
Zena?
the warrior beagle.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, it sounds like there's a little market opportunity for a conference app that can do Robert's Rules of Order.
What? This phone never rings. Let me get rid of that.
Sorry.
Hey, stop it. Let me just.
You're in demand right now.
No, this phone is just for emergencies. Nobody has that number. I don't even know what the number is.
Or is there something we just didn't have time to figure it out?
I'm sorry?
I was just saying, like, it sounds like there's, you know, a market opportunity for someone to create an app that can do an actual conference online with, you know, Robert's rules and.
Well, there is, and they're more expensive because big corporations that have their shareholders meetings, they use specific type of conferencing software. Okay. It's just not generally known to the average person. So there is. Zoom was really a terrible interface for what we did, in my opinion. Yeah. It was the best of the solution. I mean, if you wanted to really be tortured, try Adobe Connect.
Yikes.
Yeah. No bueno. Now, Zoom is great for board meetings and stuff like that, but not for conventions. And we use the Reb conference. That wasn't a conference. You know, conference, we have a bunch of people talking at other people, and it works great for that. But
right.
We did the best we could, though. I thought it went much better than I thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, it did take forever, but like, I don't know, it did kind of feel like at least it wasn't a complete clusterfuck. Like,
and there was really some order. Did not take that long. I have a feeling that some people haven't been to a convention before.
Well, that is me. I haven't been to a convention.
Same here.
Yeah.
All three of us. This is our first convention experience.
It did. If you thought that was long, that wasn't. It was about average for presidential nominating was a little bit longer for being online, but the ballots went probably faster in that Zoom meeting than they do online. I mean, in person. So, and now we're working to speed that up in person. A problem is our bylaws don't allow any kind of electronic voting, so all the ballots have to be paper. So that makes it difficult, though we think our bylaws would allow Scantrons. So yes, welcome to the 1990s. We might be using Scantrons, but it's better than.
They still use Scantrons in public schooling. I mean, not surprisingly, but
probably for this Orlando convention, we'll have some Scantrons for the LNC elections, because at large takes forever because it's approval voting and everyone and their brother decides they're going to run. Like, they weren't running until they had a few drinks in them at convention. Then all of a sudden, we nominate everyone on the floor. How about that? Do that, save time.
Right.
Because that's it. Really, there's like sometimes like 60 people nominated. It's insane.
Just for chair?
No, for at large.
Oh, for at large. Okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
And how many at large spots are there? 3? Is that what I?
5.
How many?
Is it 5? It's 4 or 5. I'm like going by memory.
What does the at large position do?
It is just like a general representative. So on the LNC, you have the officers, and then you have the regional representatives who are responsible for certain groupings of states that they're supposed to represent those states. And the at large is more like for the general membership representative. It's kind of hard to explain. I mean, because they don't really have anyone that they're directly reporting to, kind of like the regionals, but they are supposed to be generally representing the membership, whereas the officers are more representing the interests of the national party. It's a different focus. So like sometimes when some of the people get really angry with me, they don't understand that I'm doing what I was elected to do. You know, I have some state delegation chairs who are really upset because they, say this decision or this decision is going to affect them badly this way or that way. The officers aren't there to think about any one particular affiliate. That's the job of your regional representative. And the job of the officers isn't even the membership as a general. It's the national party. It's the interests of the national party. So there's very distinct roles on the LNC, and you can't expect everyone to, perform the same. I used to be regional representative, and I can tell you my voting record was entirely different, and as was everything I debated, because then it was what is best for my region.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
who did the dice toss for the order? The order
that was my predecessor, Alicia Matson.
Okay, because in my delegation, I kind of brought up that dice roll was a little shady because they were like, "Oops, it fell off the table." And
that's part of the charm of it. Come on.
Yeah, but
it wasn't on video though.
Nobody was showing it, so it's like, no, it's a 5, it's a 3, it's a 2. It's like, well, it could be anything. Like, so
but
I brought it up, and nobody was like,
"That's true
it's
with
not
half
worth
the voting. You don't know who was voting on those polls." Someone could have stuck their 5-year-old in front of the computer and just said, "When the little box comes up, pick which one you like."
I mean, that is true. Yeah.
You don't know.
But right. But I mean,
and
just
that's
the
another
order
thing what I don't like about online things. Now the die toss thing with the many-sided die is tradition, but normally it'd be live and you could see it.
Right.
And if you go to the Orlando convention, you'll see it to do the order of nominating speeches for the LNC election. The LNC elections are done just like the presidential and vice presidential, because it's not approval voting. It's first to get 50%. And there's usually multiple rounds. Last convention was unusual. Nick won on the first round and I won on the first round. Vice chair took 2 or 3 rounds.
Yeah. I remember that.
So usually each of the officer positions take at least a couple rounds.
Yeah, so you're just kind of preparing us for what's in store. What's that?
I expect that to happen this time. I don't expect any first round wins.
Yeah, I don't expect that either. Especially after a lot of stuff that just went down. But yeah, so taking this back to Nick, so now, he said he's not going to be chairing this convention, but he didn't step down, though.
No,
correct?
he didn't resign.
So,
No.
but is there any talk about voting for removal of him before this? Which I say, would you vote for that if that came down to it?
It depends. I'm very reluctant to say what I would do in an unknown situation. Do I think there's grounds? Yes.
Okay.
But it's just like with Trump, not to compare Nick to Trump, but I'm just making an analogy. With Trump's impeachment, do I think Trump deserved to be impeached? Yes. Do I think he deserved to be impeached for the bullshit charges they brought against him? No. And I would have voted no in that impeachment because that isn't what he was guilty of.
But Justin Amash was so brave and stunning.
Well, I don't agree with him there. I thought that would have been a terrible, terrible precedent.
Did I hear that you might have had a hand in running Justin Amash away? Is that a rumor?
Yeah, like my boobs make everyone pro-life too. I have these superpowers that I'm just not aware of. That is a thing, by the way. I've been accused of that too.
So, like,
Wow.
do you have any guesses as to why Justin Amash backed out?
No.
No. Okay. Yeah.
I believe what he said. And
that makes sense.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be campaigning right now. And
I mean, he was probably not paying attention to what was going on, and then jumped in and was like, "Oh, fuck this, I'm out."
Right.
And I think it's possible that the whatchamacallit, the bifurcated convention was a factor in it, that he thought maybe there was some kind of risk.
Mhm.
He didn't say that, though. One thing about the man, I think he says what he means. So if that was one of the factors, I think he would say so. So there's all kinds of theories. Who knows? I had nothing to do with it. I wanted him to run. I was getting like this biggest crush on him. I wanted him to run. I would have had a good time if he ran. So
I don't know.
I'll just have to get a crush on Joe or Spike.
I like the
Easy to
Mosh. I've liked the Mosh for years as a Republican, but I feel like, and I've liked him a lot as a Republican, because it's like as a member of Congress, he's easily was in like the top 3 members of Congress in my mind, for like the past 8 years. But then, like as a Libertarian, I feel like I have like higher standards,
Bill Weld.
Well, I mean, yeah, is he better than Bill Weld? Yeah, yes, miles past Bill Weld. And I'm not saying that I couldn't support him, as if he was the LP's candidate, I would vote for him. I could support him, but I'm happier with Joe. Maybe we don't have as much name recognition.
I'm happy that we finally get someone with an LP pedigree.
Yeah,
that we need to start doing that rather than having someone who just joins the party and immediately giving them top of the ticket. That is just foolish.
Yeah, that would have been a mosh. That would have been a mosh, though, right?
Right.
Yeah.
We need to stop doing that. To make a church analogy, that's like taking a new convert and making them pastor. I mean, you're just asking for a sex scandal.
Look, that was one of the other things I didn't like about Amash was when I always felt that when he left the Republican Party, he just went to independent right away, and he kind of made the whole thing all about him. Whereas if on the 4th of July he went to the Libertarian Party, he could have actually given the Libertarian Party a bump as well.
But I'll take what he's given us. We have our first sitting member of Congress, and I'll take it. Yeah.
Okay. Fair enough.
That is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's an L by the name there, so that I'll take it.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
And I actually, I wouldn't have had a problem with him ideologically. I think he would have been a good candidate. I'm not crazy about late entrance because my sense of justice just is offended by late entry. And I felt the same way about Jim Gray, who I love as a person. The late entry bothered me.
But not as much as the jury nullification thing.
Wayne, can you close the door?
Wayne's got some Mountain Dew.
Yeah. Say hi, Wayne.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi, Wayne.
Hi. Oh boy.
All right.
But yeah, that was so Judge Gray. I mean, he said that on the show. I mean, he said that here on this podcast, and he went on.
I didn't know that when he said that
apologize
in the debate. We were because we were having a Libertarian Party of Colorado like get together. We were all watching it. And we were like, oof.
Yeah, I mean, he was basically addressing what he had said on our show.
Yeah.
That he would be arresting pamphleteers outside of a courthouse.
That shocked me.
Yeah. It shocked me too.
That really shocked me.
Yeah, well, we were going back, like, just kind of like arguing with him about it for probably like 10 minutes, and he was just getting really mad. He's like, I don't want to talk about this anymore.
See, I like him a whole lot as a person. He's a great guy.
I do too. He's been a hero of mine for years.
But even before that, I mean, because he was on my YouTube channel and he sung, which was nice. If you haven't watched it, it's great. He did a whole song at the end because he writes musicals.
Yeah.
He did a whole song at the end of our show too.
Yeah, I love music. Yeah. He loves it. It's just a thing. But I already told him before my show I wasn't going to be able to vote for him because of his taxation policy. You know, everyone's got their issues that are a deal breaker for them, and a libertarian candidate who doesn't at least want to get rid of the IRS immediately, that's a deal breaker for me.
100%.
Yeah, actually,
that's a minimum. That's like a no-brainer. And then fair tax, no.
Right. Yeah.
No.
Well, that was Gary Johnson's whole thing, right? The fair tax.
Well, and Jim Cray was big on it too. And that was Gary Johnson's thing, which is why I didn't vote to nominate Gary Johnson. I supported him when he was a candidate. But a convention, I didn't cast. Listen, at least I can tell you that I'm unstained and unsullied. I did not cast anything for Weld, and I did not cast anything for Johnson. But I adored him as a person. He had something rare in a politician. He was a good man.
So, do you feel comfortable saying like who you voted for president, or would you just not want to say? Do you feel like it's not appropriate, or
what here?
Yeah, at the convention.
Yeah, I don't want to deal with that right now.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. That's why I asked.
Eventually, I probably will say it after Election Day. But I think people talking about that now distracts from Joe and Spike's thunder. And
you're right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yes.
You're right. Shame on me for even thinking of it. But I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but you know, in the past I would have. It's not like, you know, I'm ashamed of any of the ones I cast. It's just that.
No, I get it. It's good tact.
You don't want to muddy the waters or influence.
It was all of the rounds were difficult because we had a lot of great candidates.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah.
And we take our bait, guys. We're trying to bait her.
What's that?
I am comfortable saying this because I want to discourage negative campaigning. I like Jacob Hornberger's positions, but I did not cast one ballot for him because he attacked the other candidates. I will not reward negative campaigning from anybody.
Yeah, that was a theme that came out afterwards a lot that we had heard about before during this campaign, that a lot of his supporters weren't liking that at all, and that's kind of a faux pas in the LP. Is to attack other LP members.
He probably would have gotten some of my votes, you know.
Yeah.
But I will never reward negative campaiigning.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. You know, personally, like I'm a huge fan of Hornberger. He was my pick, but I didn't like that he did that. I didn't think it was good tact.
No, it's gross, and it promotes just such a toxic culture. And it's what the old parties do. We want to be better than that. And the way we do our rounds, it shows. Somebody who's a very polarizing candidate like he chose to be, they better win on the first round, because if they don't win on the first round, they're losing because they're nobody's second pick. They're certain people's first pick, and that's it. They're not getting, and in order to win an LP convention, you've got to be people's second pick as well as a lot of people's first pick. And that's what Joe had. All of the polls showed that if Hornberger didn't win on the first round, he wasn't going to win.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
It's probably pretty hard to win on the first round too, right?
I'm trying to think if I know of any that had.
Okay. Would Amash have won on the first round?
No, I don't think he would.
I don't see that.
Because we had too many good candidates. There were a lot of great candidates.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. It was like, you know, for me, between Hornberger, Joe Jorgensen, John Mons, and Vermin Supreme, I would have been happy with any of those. I would have been happy with any of those.
And John Mons turned it on in his initial nomination speech. He did great. He did much better than he did in the debate. He seemed kind of worn out in the debate, but at the convention,
did seem a little lackluster in the debate.
Yeah, but at convention, he did great. I was really impressed. I love John, but for those, I noticed that when I had mentioned the thing about Trump and the impeachment, some of you were like, yeah. When Joe Jorgensen first came on my radar, that was the issue, because I was it Delphi of California? It was one of the presidential debates. And one of the questions was about the Trump impeachment. And she was the only one up there who said, nope, I wouldn't have voted to impeach, even though the whole crowd, Jacob and everyone was saying they would. And everyone was like, the thing. And she had guts, and she said, nope, I wouldn't have. And that was a completely unpopular thing to say in that room. And from that moment on, she earned my respect.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Totally
so
awesome.
I immediately started keeping an eye on her there, and her speaking had gotten much better. She wasn't the best speaker then, but to me, I cared more about, the integrity. You could always learn better speaking. You can't learn better integrity. You either have it or you don't.
Right.
Right. Exactly. I was actually talking to a buddy who's, I guess you would call him a prag. You probably know who he is. I won't say his name, but he was saying he was just complaining about how Chafee fucked up on Kennedy. And it was just like
he did.
Yeah, well, thank God. He was, but this friend of mine, he's like so disappointed that Chafee fucked up on Kennedy, and I'm like, come on, it's not a spelling bee. We need to just pick actual libertarians, and they will know the proper answer.
Plus, why would you wish that? He was also a super nice guy. I would not have wished the nomination on him, because he would have been savaged by libertarians, because his positions weren't ready.
I wouldn't have voted for him.
I would have, because third-party politics are different. You don't actually vote for the candidate in third-party politics. You vote for the party. That's just the way it is. We're fighting for our life every single cycle for ballot access. And that's why I don't give Nick that hard of a time for the statement you guys were so upset about, because I think I'm seeing it from a little bit of a different perspective. Not literally Hitler would I vote for, but pretty much nearly anyone that the candidates that the people at convention would pass, I'm going to vote for them, because it's for the sake of the party. Third party politics are voting for the party. Yeah. So I think that was the point, to be fair to Nick, that he was trying to get across.
I see it, because here in Maryland, we lost ballot access. We're all in Maryland, and it sucks that, now we have to go out and get 10,000 signatures. Yeah. And now with COVID, they still said, that we still have to get the signatures. And we just filed, the Maryland LP just filed its lawsuit with the Green Party against the state, and who knows how out. So it sucks. And it's like, I think more people would have voted for because they go by our governor. So if they would have just voted for our governor who was running, we wouldn't be in this situation. So I kind of see the predicament that Nick was in, and I still find what he said to be terrible, but I get the general what he was saying, I guess.
Well, did he? I mean, I didn't hear that.
Listen, I'm not going to say that it wasn't the wrong way to say it, but I'm trying to be charitable to get to what he was saying.
Yeah, it sounds like he could have clarified it in the manner in which you did, where he could have said, well, I wouldn't literally want Hitler, but like if the delegates nominated somebody, clearly they're not Hitler. And, even if I vehemently disagree with this person, for the sake of the party, I will, vote to retain ballot access and whatnot. So
and it's not even just about it. There's a lot on the line.
Sure, yeah.
And part of the problem, I think, sometimes in our party is people trying to run the Libertarian Party like it's one of the duopoly, like the same tactics, the same messaging, the same this, the same that. What works for the two big parties does not work for third parties. Does not at all. You've got to every single election fight like you have nothing to lose, because you literally don't. You have to be the dangerous people, because there's nothing more dangerous than someone who has nothing to lose. But we play it safe, and people go, oh, this whole war between, and there isn't a division, by the way, in my mind, between prags and radicals. To me, that's such a false dichotomy. The division is between radicals and moderates can be radical in their methodology or pragmatic in their methodology. Pragmatism is a methodology. It's not an ideology. It's not opposite to radical. Radical is both a methodology and an ideology, kind of like being Jewish. It's both an ethnicity and a religion. So that makes it a little confusing. But this whole setting up like a war between the prags and the radicals, that doesn't make any sense to me. But a struggle for control of the party between the radicals and the moderates has existed since day one. And people keep saying, well, if we had just toned down our message, we would have had more success. No, I think we've been toned downing our message, and that's why we haven't had success. Because we acted like we had something to lose.
Exactly. That's why I'm excited that Joe Jorgensen, because, I started getting into the LP. Harry Brown was the first candidate I voted for. So it's great to have someone, a principal.
Well, see, I think Joe is a perfect example of the fact that there isn't this disjunction between being a radical and a pragmatist. She's definitely pragmatic in her methodology, but in her ideology, she's a radical. That's why she got a B from the Radical Caucus. You know how hard that crowd is? Oh my God.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's no mistake that she got a high grade from the Radical Caucus and got the endorsement of the Pragmatist Caucus. There's no mistake at that at all. That's not a weird thing.
Do you like her methodology, or do you think it needs some work? Okay.
No, I like it. It works for her.
Okay.
I don't try to fit everyone in the same, thing. Like, it drives me crazy when people go, you shouldn't say you're an anarchist. You do you, boo-boo. It works for me.
Yeah.
It works for me. I'm a 50-something-year-old, pink-haired, just whatever. I'm not threatening to people when I say that. They don't think I'm about to whip out a bomb. They're intrigued. And they ask me for more information. It works for me. It might not work for somebody who looks like they're going to beat the shit out of you. So everyone's got to do their own thing. It opens doors for me. It doesn't close doors for me. So I don't try to fit everybody into the same box. I think that's silly.
Yeah, that makes sense. Totally. For sure.
So it works for her. And I think she'll get doors open to her, that others wouldn't.
I think being a lady, actually helps the situation even more, especially with who she's going to be running against, the two old parties.
Yeah.
Like, their candidates are
to
so
us,
awful.
Identity politics could not matter to us all we want. It doesn't change the reality that it matters to the great deal of people outside our club.
Yeah, that's what you hear a lot, is like, I don't care about identity politics. Well, I mean, yeah, in the ideal world, we wouldn't have to worry about that shit. But the reality is, like you said, the people that are Democratic voters, Republican voters, and even just non-voters, even if they don't really care as much, it's still almost subconscious now, just because of media and culture and all that. So it's.
And I think we care too little, and I don't want to get people all of a sudden going, SJW alert, she's going to whip out her pussy hat. Nope. I think when there is a huge disparity between any demographics, be it between men and women, between minorities and non-minorities, you do have to examine yourselves to see if there's a reason for it that is not a reason you would be proud of. It could just be that's the way it is and there is no reason. But I can tell you in my experience, and then people do get mad at me, I do think at times there's a hostile environment for women in the party. Not always, but I've seen it. And I'm like the least, like, that's not my jam. But I've had a few circumstances myself that I think there was some sexism involved. And does it happen to men too? Sure, certainly.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that I've definitely seen it. I mean, because it's kind of like libertarianism is like this huge sausage party, right? So as soon as a pair of tits walks in a room, no offense, like,
Do you really
everybody's
think I'm going
like,
to be offended? My boobs make people pro-life.
I know. I was just, I know. I was just joking
By
around.
the end of this show, you guys are going to be out, picketing abortion clinics. Get ready.
Phil
Yeah,
already
it's
does that every Saturday.
Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
Nah, just kidding.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like as soon as a chick walks in a room, like all the guys just start acting like goofy, like it's the first woman that they've ever seen.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like
I'm sure
thirsty thirsty Thursdays, man.
Totally.
It's definitely
Oh,
chum in the
good.
water, but so I don't think it's as bad as some people say, but I do think it exists, and we should care a little bit.
So
you
we
think
actually,
the fact that like Joe got the nomination is running sort of is sort of some points against, or how should I phrase this? Is basically proof that it's getting a little bit better in that regard, or it sort of fights against that in some
I don't
fashion.
think the ways it still exists in the party have anything to do with hindrances to women becoming leaders in the party.
Okay.
But I do think it's a hindrance to women remaining leaders in the party. There was a state chair. I'm not going to say the state and I'm not going to say the chair, but she was ran off by just some overly very male, very aggressive tactics that she just didn't want to deal with and shouldn't have had to deal with. So I've seen it, but it's not just men. I've never been harassed by a man in this party, but I've been sexually harassed for 3.5 years by another woman.
Wow.
oh, wow.
That's why I make the boob jokes all the time, because I swear she's got a cast of them on her wall.
Wow.
Wow. Damn. So would you say who this is or no, or?
I don't really want to mention names. The people who know, and the ones who don't
Okay.
can just laugh at my boob jokes. They're funny regardless.
Okay.
You don't need the context.
So recently we had Julie Borowski on the program, and I actually asked her, how can we make the libertarian movement not so much of a sausage party? Like what is your opinion? Like what can we do?
Well, we can stop saying so vehemently we don't care at all about identity politics. I think we should frame it the way I did, that you should always look to see if there's some barriers. You should always look to see if there's some barriers if all you got is a bunch of old people and wonder why aren't young people attracted, any kind of demographic. But I think it's because we're a bunch of INTJs, and that isn't, very few women are INTJs. And we can come across as very cold and uncaring, even if we're not. That's, for instance, I did a show on this on the Big L podcast where I discussed, and it was amazing to me that people came to me afterwards and goes, "What a tremendous insight." I'm like, okay, that's the problem if this is seen as a tremendous insight. So I dealt with the who will build the roads question. And my premise was, when people ask you who will build the roads, they're not asking you who will build the roads. That's not their real question. They may even believe that's their real question. But if you dig down to it, the question nearly everyone is asking when they ask you sincerely and not as just being a jackass, who will build the roads? What they're really asking is who will feed the poor? What they're asking is who will do the things for people that you're not going to get any benefit for, that is completely selfless. That's really what they're asking. Nobody questions who will build the roads. Everyone wants roads, but it doesn't benefit everybody to take care of disabled people, to take care of poor people, to take care of old people. That is the real question they are asking. And for us to go around and go, derpity derp, the people who build them now, you're an idiot. That's why there aren't more women in the party, because women tend to care more because what they're thinking about is their children.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think like a lot of issues that are on the forefront of libertarianism aren't like homeschooling. That's, I don't know, that doesn't, like a lot, some women that I know, they're mothers. So that's like their number one is the public schools, the curriculum, the, homeschooling.
It's just caring about women, or whether it's cultural or innate, I don't care. We're raised to be the nurturers of the weaker. or the defenseless. And when we come across as not caring, plus they also view themselves, listen, if I listen to a bunch of some kind of libertarian dudes talk and about their perfect libertarian society, I realize I'd be dead in 5 minutes because I'm not cut out for Thunderdome. And that seems to be the wet dream of too many libertarian guys, you know?
You're not ready for the boot. You're not ready for
You're
the
not ready to boogaloo. Not ready to feed them to the gators.
You know? So I think we need to realize that freedom or liberty, whichever word, some people think there's a difference between the two words. I don't believe that, but I know a lot of minarchists do. Freedom is only a necessary precondition for human flourishing. It's not sufficient in and of itself. There is such a thing as a libertarian dystopia. There is such a thing as a perfect libertarian world that would be absolutely hell to live in. Liberty is not the only thing you need. You have to have humanitarianism impulse in there as well. And that is what Bowtie, crap, what's his name?
Jeff Tucker.
That's what he was getting. That's what he was getting at in his article against libertarian brutalism. Libertarian brutalism is perfectly libertarian. I don't want to live in that world, and neither do 99% of the women. I think there's some guys who do. And there's some guys who would thrive and that can fend for themselves and be, you know, Mr. Mountain Man. But most women, for a good portion of their lives, are more helpless because they're either pregnant or taking care of children. And in a not so civilized society, that is not any place a woman wants to be. And we need to realize that if we want to attract women into this party. And I'm not the typical woman. I don't have kids. I'm not very motherly. So that's why it doesn't bother me as much, but I hear other women, and I'm still a female, so I get it. You know, I've never held a baby in my life, and I never want to. When they bring them into the office, I'd be like, the other way. But that's not the way most women are. And I think you'll find that a lot of women in the Libertarian Party are pretty atypical, but we need to start looking at, we don't have to compromise our principles or what we believe.
It's more about how we're going to communicate them. It's like for, you know, not to sound sexist or whatever, but like for men or women like you, it's, you know, it's typical to sort of communicate more of a logical, well, you know, here's how we would do the court systems and anarcho-utopia and all that. Whereas with, you know, women or the typical woman, you've got to appeal more to the heart, more to the emotional side.
Well, you got to show both, because libertarian dystopia is possible.
Yeah, sure.
So I don't believe in giving a sheerly utilitarian message. I think that completely undercuts our principles. So when people make arguments like the free market will give us a better healthcare system, while I believe that's true, that should never be our only argument, because all it takes is someone to argue that it doesn't, and then what? You're tied. You need to argue both the ethical principle and the practical outcome. You can't eliminate either of those. If you just say the principle, you sound like an asshole that doesn't care. And if you just say the utilitarians, it takes is somebody who's a little bit more silver-tongued than you to show, no, I think this will work better.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Stealing is stealing, no matter how happy it might make you or how well it works for you.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. You need both. You need the utilitarian, you need the ethical, moral argument.
What Joe does is something that I call compassionate radicalism. And that's what I think the party needs. And that's the big problem I had with Arvin. Arvin was a fellow anarchist on the LNC. You know, except for, to me, listen, I'll admit it. I don't care if people call me a statist on this issue. There's two things that'll probably get me spouting statist stuff. You start talking about screwing around with children, and I don't mean literally screwing them, though You say anything that impacts children negatively or animals, and I'll turn statist on you. I fully admit it.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
Seems fair.
It hits me in the feels, and I lose my mind. But Arvin was putting aside his whole obsession on the age of consent thing. He was spot on in a lot of things that he said, but he was such a dick about it.
Right.
You know?
Exactly. Yeah. He was in our delegation this weekend, and he was in our delegation this weekend, and he wasn't too happy with a lot of us, and spent the whole time pretty much trashing us in their Slack group. So
yeah, he was. I mean, he's been a friend of the podcast. He's been on a few times, but I don't know if he was necessarily singling out. I mean, Phil, you said he was singling you out.
He was.
But yeah, he was.
I don't feel like talking about it.
He's brilliant. He's a brilliant man, and most of his ideas, 85% of his ideas. And the only reason I put it even that low is because I haven't talked with him enough to make it higher, are spot on. But his communication style sucks.
Yeah.
He was trolling our Slack, our delegation chat during the convention, and I mean, I don't know, it was probably a low blow, but he didn't even show up to the Maryland convention, yet wanted to be a delegate. And then the last time he ran for Senate in Maryland, he forgot a filing date, and I couldn't even vote for him. But let me give you though something about Arvin though. I will give him this. He didn't know I was listening, and I forgot what state convention we were at, but a woman overheard us all talking, and she walked up to him and started asking him questions about the party. And I'm like behind this like column. He didn't know I was there. And then she asked him about the public schools, and I went, my asshole clenched. Oh my God, this is going to be bad. And he handled it wonderfully, and she still lost her shit on him. Yeah. And he really, I thought it was going to be, and her head was going to be gone. No, he handled it beautifully. His wife was right there with him, and I think
that could have something to do with it.
Makes him better.
Well, it also might be
nice.
In person. He does not, and this is like most people really, but like in person, he's not the same as he is online.
He's much better in person. I know everybody's kind of a jerk online.
Yeah, like I said, he comes on this he's been on our podcast a few times, and while he'll say, we all say radical shit, but he's not getting into like heated like attacks or arguments or just being a dick. But when it comes to online,
we're all a dick online a little bit.
That's true. But when you're attacking like other fellow libertarians, like he was doing without any cause, it was a little.
And his problem was people would tell him he's being a dick, and he wouldn't step back and look at it. Like, I was a dick earlier today on a couple things, and one of my friends confronted me, and first I got mad, and then I stepped back and was like, you're right. And I took down the post. And as long as we can let our friends rein us in, it will keep us on an even king. But nobody could rein Arvin in. That was the problem. He dug his own grave with that.
Well, I mean, hopefully he sees like finally, he ran for the big tamale, right? President, and hopefully he can see now that, his approach isn't working, because he is really good. And like, I love Arvin so much. Like I hope and pray that he can like fine tune it, right, to just stop dying on these stupid ass hills.
He's a big brain. That dude is brilliant.
Yes.
And he looks sharp. I mean, he's got so much going for him.
Yeah, he would show up to Anarchy Basement in like a fucking tuxedo.
Yeah, no, he's sharp.
He did every time.
We just need to get his wife to soften him up a bit, because he really did handle. Yeah. I thought that lady, and when she just, I was just like, wow. This goes to show some people you just aren't going to reach.
Sure.
Yeah.
Because he did a good job, and he didn't know I was listening, so it wasn't a
performance.
There
is one more question from the Discord, from our fans. There was, I guess this was a Facebook message you had sent out, or a Facebook
what did
post.
I do now?
You said, on the other hand, I was sent a shit ton of hentai over the convention.
Oh yeah, recently. I was.
What was that about?
I made the mistake of like saying, hey, be sure to send your ballots to, and I gave the email address.
Oh no.
Right.
And bad. That's why I wouldn't give it again.
Yeah. Oh man.
And then apparently one of my browser windows had my 2 Gmail things up with the email address, and
geez. Did they edit that off of the YouTube yet?
Oh, they're not going to edit that off.
Oh man.
Oh no. Was the convention on C-SPAN? I don't even.
No, it was on YouTube.
No.
It was just YouTube, strictly YouTube.
Yeah. But hey, Wayne,
People still watch
Wayne
C-SPAN?
Shut the Door got twittered by Reason.
Yeah.
You got.
It was not Brian Dougherty. I'm getting old. You'd say the name and I'd remember. The senior editor. No, it wasn't Gillespie. The other guy. No, there's one more.
Matt
Who?
Welch.
Yes.
Matt Welch.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
yeah.
I think it was him. Was it? Whatever. It was one of those guys. So I thought I laughed. I said, Wayne, you're famous.
Nice.
I'm telling you, at convention, we really. No, he's not in here. We really need to get a bunch of people that just start yelling, Wayne, shut the door. That'd be freaking awesome.
Get enough
That'd be
alcohol in me, and I'll say whatever you
Are
want.
we allowed to
me
have
say.
like signs in the convention?
That would be freaking awesome.
I might make one.
Yeah.
I'm just-
I think I'm going to make some of those name badge ribbons.
There you go.
I'm always looking for something to do.
Hell yeah. All right, Matt. You got anything else?
No, I think that's about it. So yeah, we're gonna head over to our after hours program, and Caryn, if you want to stick around and hang, you're more than welcome to.
What is that?
So that's a program that we do for our Patreon subscribers.
Oh, gotcha.
So yeah. So we're gonna head over and do that. This podcast is brought to you in part by Conversations About Freedom podcast, hosted by Moral Bob. We have t-shirts over at libertariancountry.com. If you type in the code PRL or the code PRL podcast, you'll receive a 10% discount. If you spend $50 or more and you type in the code PRL2, you'll receive a 20% discount. Until next time, live free
Or die.
Why not both?